Aloha. Thank you for joining us. I'm so happy that you're here. And I'm very excited to have all of you here today to be able to share some really helpful information. We're going to be talking today about fermented foods and the pros and cons about them. Um, so, for those of you who aren't familiar with me, my name is Dr. Catherine Taketa-Wong. I'm a naturopathic physician, an ND. And like medical doctors, NDs must attend a 4-year medical school, and we are trained as primary care physicians. As such, I can order lab tests, write prescriptions, and do school physicals the same as any other doctor. I'm also a licensed acupuncturist trained in Chinese medicine. The typical medical school, conventional medical school, offers about 19.6 hours of nutrition training for conventional medical doctors. Naturopathic doctors, on the other hand, receive about 155 hours and are trained in the power of nutrition to build health from the inside. In addition, I use vitamins, healing herbs, and other natural medicines to deal with the underlying causes of disease and treat the whole person. Doing things this way takes a lot more time than just prescribing pills. My office visits are a full hour. As the talk progresses, if you have any health concerns that you would like to talk with me about, please call our office. We offer a no-charge phone consultation called the Personal Health Strategy Session. You'll find all of the contact information here on our Facebook page. Today's event is called Fermented Foods, the good, the bad, the spicy. In this talk, you'll learn what fermented foods are, how they can be helpful for the digestive system and for other systems in our body, and why they can also be bad for some people. Are fermented foods really good for you? Surprisingly, it actually depends on the person's makeup. Most cultures around the world have their versions of fermented food, some like yogurt beginning over 5,000 years ago. There are other cultures that have other types of fermented foods, and I'll get a little bit more into that later as we talk. But fermented foods have long been seen as beneficial, and for most people, they are. But today we know that some individuals react to the histamine in them. Fermented foods are naturally high in histamine. Histamine intolerance is something that happens when people have difficulty being able to break down the histamine that occurs in fermented foods. And symptoms that can show up can include hay fever, itchy skin, diarrhea, constipation, unexplained exhaustion, and severe menstrual pain. Fermented foods are naturally occurring sources of probiotics, which provide good bacteria for our gut and good yeasts as well. Both of these are important for a healthy digestive functioning immune system, a healthy digestive function. They also contribute to normal immune system function and to brain function. And why are fermented foods helpful for our brain? It's really interesting, but first, I think we should talk about each food in case some people aren't familiar with them. So these are some examples of some common fermented foods. Let's start with kombucha. This beverage only recently became known in America, but it began in China around 220 BC. Miso. The earliest form of miso was created in Japan about 1000 BC, but not from soybeans like we know today, but actually from fish or grains. Sauerkraut, which is best when cabbage is naturally fermented with just salt and when there's no preservatives in them. This process began in Europe in the 1500s. Pickles. Again, these are most beneficial when they are fermented with just salt, not with vinegar or and making sure that there's not any preservatives in them. Pickles date back to 2400 BC Mesopotamia, though they became staples in Europe. Kimchi. These pickled vegetables with spices and peppers originated in Korea about 2,000 years ago. Besides cabbage, other vegetables can be included or even made separately. Yogurt. Yogurt was first noted in the Middle East about 5000 BC, which originated other fermented dairy foods as well. If you eat yogurt, it is best to buy organic to avoid the pesticides, hormones, and other potentially harmful chemicals in non-organic milk. Tempeh. Tempeh is a relatively new fermented food dating back to Indonesia in 1815. This should also be purchased in its organic form because conventional soybeans are grown with large amounts of chemical fertilizers and sprayed with pesticides, particularly Roundup, when they are grown in the United States and they're not organic. Now, I started out by saying that fermented foods are, for most people, beneficial for the digestive system. Why is this? Our gut, specifically the small intestine, is where food is broken down and absorbed. Once it's absorbed, the nutrients are transported into a network of tiny blood vessels that shuttle them into the bloodstream to be distributed throughout the body. Good bacteria, or probiotics, are what help to break down the food. By the way, this is one of the reasons that I use personalized food recommendations, vitamins, herbs, and other types of natural medicines to address the underlying causes of disease instead of just treating the symptoms with drugs. Many medications can damage our digestive system, and I don't want my patients to have to deal with the side effects that can be potentially harmful if they don't need to absolutely take those medications. Also, there is more to a person than their ailments. So we all have feelings, emotions, personal concerns, challenges, and moments of victory. How we feel and what we think about treatment and care can make a big difference in the outcome, which is why I believe it's so important to treat the whole person and not just their symptoms. So we'll get back to the good, the bad, the spicy in a moment. But before I go on, I wanted to pause to remind those who are just joining us that we offer a no-charge personal consultation called the Personal Health Strategy Session. This is a 15-minute strategy session where we can talk, where you can talk with me personally about any health concerns that you may have and about how to feel empowered about your health. To arrange one, just call our office and ask to be scheduled for your free consultation. I believe it's important to talk with people before they go ahead and schedule an appointment so we both have a better idea about what needs to be achieved. You'll find all of our contact information right here on our Facebook page. In fact, you can just click on the contact button. So getting back to fermented foods, many people are surprised by the number of digestive problems that can potentially be helped by eating fermented foods. Examples include frequent upset stomach, ulcers, diarrhea, constipation, and inflammation in the digestive system. And then there is the issue of antibiotics. While they certainly have their place in medicine and can be life-saving, research studies have found that even a single dose of antibiotics can permanently alter the types of bacteria in your gut, and this includes good bacteria. So when people take them orally, they often get diarrhea or upset stomach or nausea, and this is a result of the good bacteria being killed off. When people eat fermented foods after they've been given antibiotics, they provide a natural source of good bacteria that can help to replace some of the ones that were killed by the antibiotics. Quite often in my practice, if a patient is having digestive problems from antibiotics, when they start eating fermented foods and take probiotic supplements, often all or nearly all of the symptoms will either go away or get a lot better. Another time I recommend fermented foods is when people get food poisoning. In fact, a colleague of mine, another doctor, had a case where someone baked a cake and her son, who was about 10 years old at the time, and all of her staff ate the cake. Every single person who ate the cake came down with the common food poisoning symptoms, and they were all really sick. The doctor found out there was a problem right after her son had eaten a piece of the cake. And he actually started getting stomach cramps, and her son started craving pickle juice. Fortunately, she had some good quality pickle juice, and her son drank an entire cup of it. And then he went to bed, and she was waiting for him to wake up with diarrhea and nausea and throwing up in the middle of the night. And amazingly, he got none of the symptoms that the others got. He was totally fine. Um, and that's because some of the good bacteria in the gut can help to offset the effects of bad bacteria. And so that's why I recommend fermented foods during food poisoning. Also, when I say good quality, I mean that it's naturally fermented with just salt and no vinegar and has no preservatives. So by the way, you can get this kind of good quality pickles at Safeway. There's other ones, but a brand that I like is called Bubby's Pickles. It's spelled Bubbie, Bubby's. I don't have any financial connection with them, but it's a brand that I personally like. There are other ways that fermented foods can be helpful for our health. So many of the good bacteria in fermented foods actually have antimicrobial molecules. So these help to eliminate some gut microbes, and in order to create a normal, healthy balance of bacteria where there's not too much bacteria, not too much bad bacteria, and also no overgrowth of good bacteria. Fermented foods also have compounds that help to make the nutrients in food more easily absorbable. So studies have shown that being deprived of fermented foods actually causes a decrease in the effectiveness of our immune system as well. So that's another really interesting thing. It's important to keep reminding ourselves that our gut is actually connected to our immune system. It's still a relatively new concept for the general public. And what happens is that the good bacteria in our gut actually communicate with cells in our immune system. So they actually exchange chemical messages, and they help to keep the good bacteria help to keep our immune system in balance, meaning that our immune system will attack the things that could make us sick, and that our immune system also doesn't get haywire in a sense where our immune system starts attacking our own body, like in autoimmune diseases, or attacking other kinds of things and causing allergies. This is why it's so important to have the healthy gut bacteria in order to keep our immune system in balance. And that's how it can best protect us from viruses and illness-causing bacteria while not overreacting to our own body. Many people who have autoimmune problems where their immune system attacks their own body, as I mentioned earlier, do have disruptions in their gut. A normal immune system means that you shouldn't really have allergies either. That's why there are some research reports that show that fermented foods may help to reduce allergies. What about fermented foods and our brain? Research has found that fermented foods can help to correct imbalances in the gut, which in turn can reduce anxiety and depression. I'm always amazed to see the interconnections in all the aspects of our body. The research is still in its early stages and more studies are definitely needed, but in my own clinical experience of working with patients, I have definitely seen benefits in my patients. We know the mechanism. Some of the brain chemicals that affect our mood are actually made in the gut. For example, serotonin. Serotonin is a major chemical that we know for certain helps to decrease the levels of depression and anxiety. Disruptions in the gut can lead to disruptions in our normal balance of brain chemicals. Other brain chemicals that gut bacteria make and respond to include GABA, which is a calming brain chemical, melatonin, which helps to regulate our sleep, norepinephrine, and dopamine, which are involved in ADHD and a number of other mental health conditions, also have a gut-brain connection. Lastly, I mentioned that some people do have a condition that makes fermented foods problematic. The reason is histamine intolerance. It's fairly rare, but it does exist, and it's often mistaken for food allergies and digestive diseases. Histamine is a chemical that prompts release of the stomach acid to help with digestion. It also gets released after an injury or an allergic reaction as part of the immune system response. Symptoms can include diarrhea, chronic headaches, stomach cramps, congested or runny nose, shortness of breath, very itchy skin, and many more. And this comes because, again, fermented foods are naturally high in this chemical called histamine, and some people have problems being able to break down histamine. And so it results in these symptoms that I mentioned. In addition to fermented food, there are other high histamine foods which can include alcohol, aged cheeses, vinegar, chocolate and cocoa, most citrus fruits, pineapple, bananas. It's a long list. If you're interested, please search for high histamine foods to find a complete list. You can also call my office to schedule a free phone consultation, and we can talk more about these things in order to figure out if you could have actually an issue with histamines. So, what have we covered today? Fermented foods have a long history in human culture, and just about all of them has one or more fermented foods in their diet. They contain probiotics, which, with some exceptions, are good for our gut and aid in digestion and the assimilation of nutrients. Fermented foods also contribute to immune system balance and the production of beneficial brain chemicals. I trust our discussion has been useful for you. Remember, we offer a no-charge phone consultation called the Personal Health Strategy Session. That's where you can talk with me personally about any health concerns that you have and about how to feel empowered with your health. To arrange one, just call or text our office and ask to be scheduled for your free consultation. I believe it's important to talk with people before they go ahead and schedule an appointment so we both have a better idea of what needs to be achieved. You'll find all of our contact information right here on our Facebook page. In fact, you can just click on the contact button. Mahalo, and I look forward to being with you again in 2 weeks. Aloha.